2 Chronicles Chapter 8. And at the end of the 20 years in which Solomon had built the house of Jehovah and his own house, he built the cities which Huram had given to him and settled the children of Israel there. Then Solomon went to Hamath, Zobah and overcame it. And he built Tadmor in the wilderness and all the storage cities which he built in Hamath. And he built upper Beth-horon and lower Beth-horon, fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars. And Baalath and all the storage cities that Solomon had, even all the cities for the chariots, and the cities for the horsemen and all that Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem and in Lebanon and in all the land of his dominion. All the people who were left of the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, who were not of Israel. From their descendants who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel had not destroyed utterly, these Solomon levied as forced labor, as they are unto this day. But Solomon did not make slaves of the children of Israel for his work, for they were the men of war and the officers over his captains and the officers over his chariots and his horsemen. And these were the chief of the officers of King Solomon, 250, who ruled over the people. Then Solomon brought up Pharaoh's daughter from the city of David into the house which he had built for her, for he said, My wife shall not dwell in the house of David the king of Israel, for the places where the ark of Jehovah has entered are holy. Then Solomon offered up burnt offerings to Jehovah on the altar of Jehovah which he had built before the portico, even as required daily, offering them up according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbaths and on the new moons and on the appointed feasts 3 times in a year, at the feast of unleavened bread and at the feast of weeks and at the feast of tabernacles. And according to the ordinance of David his father, he appointed the divisions of the priests for their service, and the Levites for their charges to praise and to minister before the priests even as required daily, and the gatekeepers by their divisions at every gate, for thus was the commandment of David the man of God. And they did not turn aside from the commandment of the king concerning the priests and the Levites concerning any matter and concerning the treasuries. So all the work of Solomon was carried out, from the day of the foundation of the house of Jehovah even until its completion. Thus the house of Jehovah was finished. Then Solomon went to Ezion-Geber and to Elath on the shore of the sea, in the land of Edom. And Huram sent him ships by his servants, and servants who knew the sea, and they went with the servants of Solomon to Ophir and took 450 talents of gold from there and brought it to King Solomon. 2 Chronicles Chapter 9. And the queen of Sheba had heard of Solomon's fame, and she came to Jerusalem with a very large retinue and with camels bearing spices and much gold and precious stones to test Solomon with hard questions. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him all that was on her heart. And Solomon answered every matter of hers, and there was nothing hidden from Solomon that he did not answer her. And when the queen of Sheba saw the wisdom of Solomon and the house that he had built, and the food of his table and the seating of his servants and the service and apparel of his ministers and his cupbearers and their apparel and his ascent by which he went up to the house of Jehovah, there was no more spirit in her. And she said to the king, The word that I heard in my land concerning your deeds and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe their words until I came and my own eyes saw. And indeed the half of the greatness of your wisdom was not told me, and you exceed the report that I heard. Happy are your men. And happy are these your servants, who stand before you continually and hear your wisdom. Blessed be Jehovah your God, who has delighted in you and set you upon his throne as king for Jehovah your God. Because your God loves Israel to establish them forever, he has placed you as king over them to execute justice and righteousness. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold and a very great store of spices and precious stones, and there had never been spices like those which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Moreover, Huram's servants and Solomon's servants who brought gold from Ophir brought algum trees and precious stones. And the king made of the algum trees steps for the house of Jehovah and for the king's house and lyres and harps for the singers, such as these had not been seen before in the land of Judah. And King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba all that she desired, whatever she asked for, besides that which she brought to the king. And she turned and went to her own land, she and her servants. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Besides that which was brought by the traders and the merchants and by all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land, who brought gold and silver to Solomon. And King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. He put 600 shekels of beaten gold upon each large shield. And he made 300 smaller shields of beaten gold, he put 300 shekels of gold upon each smaller shield. And the king put them in the Lebanon forest house. And the king made a large ivory throne and overlaid it with pure gold. And the throne had 6 steps, and a footstool of gold was attached to the throne, and there were armrests on either side next to the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood next to the armrests. And 12 lions stood there upon the 6 steps on either side. Nothing like it had ever been made in any kingdom. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the Lebanon forest house were of pure gold. Silver was considered as nothing in the days of Solomon. For the king had a fleet which went to Tarshish with Huram's servants. Once every 3 years the fleet from Tarshish came bearing gold and silver and ivory and apes and peacocks. And King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in wealth and in wisdom. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon, to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And they each brought their tribute, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and robes, weapons and spices, horses and mules, so much year by year. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, which he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem. And he was the ruler over all the kings from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. And the king caused silver to be as plentiful as stones in Jerusalem, and cedars, like the sycamores that are in the lowlands. And they brought horses for Solomon from Egypt and from all the lands. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, the first and the last, are they not written in the Chronicles of Nathan the prophet and in the prophecy of Ahijah the Shilonite and in the visions of Iddo the seer concerning Jeroboam the son of Nebat? And Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his place. 2 Chronicles Chapter 10. Then Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. And when Jeroboam the son of Nebat heard of it, for he was in Egypt, where he had fled from Solomon the king, and Jeroboam returned from Egypt. And they sent word to him and called him. Jeroboam and all of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke hard. Now therefore make the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke that he put upon us lighter, and we will serve you. And he said to them, Go away for another 3 days, then return to me. And the people went away. Then King Rehoboam took counsel with the elders who attended Solomon his father while he was alive, saying, What counsel do you give me to return as an answer to this people? And they spoke to him, saying, If you will be good to this people and please them and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants always. But he forsook the counsel of the elders with which they counseled him and took counsel with the young men who had grown up with him, who attended him. And he said to them, What counsel do you give me that we may return an answer to this people who have spoken to me, saying, Lighten the yoke that your father put upon us? And the young men who grew up with him spoke with him, saying, Thus shall you say to the people who have spoken to you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but you must make it lighter on us. Thus shall you say to them, My little finger is thicker than my father's loins. And now, whereas my father laid a heavy yoke upon you, I will increase your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. And Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day as the king had spoken, saying, Return to me on the 3rd day. And the king answered them harshly, and King Rehoboam forsook the counsel of the elders, and spoke to them according to the counsel of the young men, saying, I will make your yoke heavy, and I will add to it. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So the king did not listen to the people, for this turn of events was of God, that Jehovah might establish his word which he had spoken through Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. And when all Israel saw that the king would not listen to them, the people returned an answer to the king, saying, What portion do we have in David? Neither do we have an inheritance in the son of Jesse. Each one to your tents, O Israel. Now see to your own house, O David. And all Israel went to their tents. But as for the children of Israel who dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent Huram, who was over the forced labor, and the children of Israel stoned him to death. And King Rehoboam made haste to get up into his chariot and flee to Jerusalem. So Israel has rebelled against the house of David until this day.